Could I just welcome Ed back to speak to us? He spoke to us last time about 7 months ago, and Ed's subject of mental well-being is so it's so necessary to be discussing it more and more during this pandemic. It was 7 months ago, Ed, that you spoke to us last time, and there was lots of positive responses. People encouraged me to invite you back, so here you are. So I'm just now going to hand over to you, Ed.
Good thing. Thanks, Gordon. Well, thanks very much for having me back. I'm hoping, well, luckily I've got a few stats and things that I can kind of report back with and give you a sense of what we've been up to. So just to give you a bit of context, well, my name's Ed. I work for, well, I run a company called Mental Wellbeing in Schools. I was a history teacher at Herts and Essex before I started teaching this. And while I was a history teacher at the school, I discovered this new form of well-being education that psychologists and psychiatrists were doing in the US. And we have fantastic results at Herts and Essex with it. And so with lockdown, I started working with the NHS. And so in 2019, Dr. Stanley, who is the clinical director of the Stort Valley and Villages Primary Care Network. So she's in charge of central surgery in Sawbridgeworth, Church Street, South Street, and Much Haddam. And they started a new initiative called the Adolescent Social Prescription Service in 2019 to try and provide quick, effective support for local families who are struggling, because the waiting list for national services were just huge for CAMS and different things like that. The waiting lists were really long, and we wanted to, well, they wanted to try and get some community-based services locally that were really effective and make sure that they were being utilized to their full potential. So Dr. Stanley employed a chap called Ben Nesham, who is the adolescent link worker for this area. And Ben's an incredible guy. He's got a background in social care and mental health and a whole host of things. And basically his job was to pull together all the local community interventions that could be useful to the NHS, and then take doctors' referrals and essentially feed them through. He would link the doctors with these community-based interventions. And he was also charged in setting them up. And he's been pretty successful at doing that. And essentially, I'm one of those interventions. So my service sits under the Adolescent Social Prescription Service, and it's called the Family Wellbeing Health Coaching Service. And that's been running officially really since October. And we've just put together a report on how effective these services have been, and it's been pretty encouraging reading, we feel. So it will be nice to share that with you tonight. So primarily we're here to support local families, and we are essentially a preventative, we're based on a preventative model. We want to really help people before they get to the point where they're visiting A&E and things are getting worse. So essentially what Ben will prescribe to about 20 different services. And like I say, I'm one of them. And if we look at, so the stats that we've kind of, that have come back from this report, we're starting to see in terms of Ben's service, we've got about 160 referrals of local families since October. And out of that, 146 were actually successfully placed in an intervention. And what we've done is we've developed a kind of a short questionnaire that we ask everybody to fill in on Ben's service. And, that's returning a 93.75% rate of good or excellent. So, it's pretty encouraging. And the great thing about Ben is because he's worked in such a variety of different industries, he is so fantastic at getting people to engage who wouldn't engage. And as a community-based service, we are doing that a lot. We're finding that there is this whole section of society where they just won't engage with mental health services a lot of the time, or they just won't engage with anything. And the great thing about Ben is he seems to be actually engaging these people regularly and getting them to interact and actually get some support, which is just so cool. In terms of my service, so I run a one-to-one service where I will work with someone one-to-one for kind of 6 to 8 sessions, and then they'll go off and either do something else or they'll be fine. So I have that side to it, and the other side to it is that I run group sessions online with Ben, and we have a parent group, NHS parent group. We have a teen group, so they're separate, and then I do other groups online as well. But they're the predominant NHS ones. And so I've processed 62 families in a one-to-one setting, and we have had 48 teenagers come through our group program, and 20 parents come through our other group program. So we've touched just over 100, well, almost 120 people. So that seems to be working well. And when we actually did the stats I have a specific the metrics that I use to look at how effective my service is. It's essentially a mix. It's a questionnaire, a short online questionnaire, and it's a mix between the Edinburgh Warwick system that the government use and something called I think it's the stress something test that a lot of psychiatrists in the States use. And then I've added a couple of questions of my own. So it's kind of a blend. And with that, what we saw was a 92% retention rate, which was quite exciting, bearing in mind that we're dealing with teens and families that are, in a really, really bad way. And so, it's been a lot of fun. We've learned a huge amount from doing it. What we're seeing is that people come back and use our system. So they'll go through an intervention, and if they feel like they need something else, or they enter some particularly difficult circumstances, they can then come back in, and we've seen that a bit. But in terms of just talking about my service now, what's been really encouraging is I'm starting to see people change after 3 or 4 sessions, and change for life, because we've had to go back over and talk to a lot of people to get the stats and to get some of the case studies for this report. And it's been lovely to see that 3-4 months on, a lot of the time people are still doing really, really well. And it's just all come from them starting to get a clearer sense of how life works. So in terms of what I show people is we're essentially discussing fundamental truths about life. And so through starting to see these truths, they quieten down. As soon as a person starts to appreciate that 100% of the time they're living in their thinking, you don't experience anything but what your mind creates. That's it. And it's a very compelling trick, because we're surrounded by real stuff and real people and real things. And they are real, but we're always having a mental experience of them. And so there's this missing link, essentially, in the human understanding of the world. And as people start to see this invisible missing link, then they start to get the reason for their problems, because they start to see their behavior is the result of the feelings and the way they're seeing the world, their perceptions of the world. And they start to see that this comes from what their mind's unconsciously creating. So it's almost like you start to see the magic trick. You start to see how it happens. And so that slows people down. Now, people's minds in society are generally racing far too quick. Societal norm is far too quick. There's far too much stuff going on. But you start to talk to people about how life works, they slow down. And if you're driving, if you slow the car down, you actually see what you're passing. Or as we slow down, we really start to see how this trick works. We really start to see how fear enters our life. And we start to get a sense of the fact that, well, if we're all living in a mental reality, our moods are changing all the time. So that actually kind of means that essentially, in a good mood, you don't really get a lot of negativity into your life. And in a low mood, you get loads. And so you start to see, well, hang on a sec, my understanding of life is altering all day long, it's changing. And what I try and show people is that your moods are your intelligence. Your understanding of life is what intelligence is. If you look at the word origin for intelligence, it means the ability to comprehend general truths. It's got nothing to do with brain power. But as a teacher, I deeply believed it was to do with brain power, how quickly you could analyze something, how good your recall was. But no, it's how clearly do you see how life works? And so as people start to appreciate that for years, they've held themselves in a particular level of understanding, and usually it's largely full of a lot of negativity. So this shows them why their behavior has been so, challenging at points. It shows them why they've experienced anxiety, why they've been locked into depression, why they're struggling generally, why their relationships aren't working. Because we get scared and we hold ourselves we live according to these beliefs that we've created. And they're essentially like a glass ceiling. They lock you in to a particular way of seeing the world. This is why a person could have the most fantastic physical circumstances and still be depressed, because they are caught in that particular thinking that they're creating, and it looks real to them, and it's completely innocent, and they have no knowledge of what they're doing. But as they start to get a sense of what's going on and how this is working and how innocent it is, well, then those glass ceilings are seen and they disappear. And so then they kind of rise, their intelligence expands, their muscles relax, their intelligence expands. Now they can self-regulate. They can actually live a life without being followed by anxiety and fear all the time. So this is another truth. You see that you live in different levels of understanding. And as a result of that, you can start to see that people are always acting innocently, no matter what. It's a fundamental rule of life that people act innocently. And that takes so much guilt and shame and blame away from people. It's a huge amount of mental weight that can be taken off their minds at that point, which again increases their level of intelligence, their level of understanding life. So again, they can then go and make better decisions and change things. A lot of people have got things in their life that they need to put right, and they've tried to put them right over years, and it's never worked. For instance, regularly I come across people that have ex-partners, usually from a marriage, and they still interact with them in the same way that they did when they were married. They're still living in that past all the time. They don't get free of their past. Whereas if you see how the mind works, you can be free of your past immediately. You see that the past actually has no control over you. It doesn't exist. It's the same with the future. It doesn't exist, because the past is nothing but memory. And thoughts, memories, they're kind of like clouds. Clouds pass across the sky, but they don't mark it. And we all grow up thinking we're the sum of our experiences. And on one level we are, but that's not who we really are. That's kind of like that's a role that we're playing. As we start to see who we really are, and that we're all the same in the essence of who we are, it's all the same, always the same. When people's minds go quiet, their hearts open. They experience this essence of life, of just being alive, of who we are. Now, as children, we experienced it all the time. And for a lot of people, it kind of gets lost as you get older. And we put that down to life and growing up. It's not. It's down to the way we start to see life. We start to unconsciously fill our minds with negative thinking. We start becoming serious. And as I say to a lot of people, seriousness to me is a mental health disorder. Whenever I'm getting serious, my understanding has dropped so low. If I'm getting upset by something, I'm getting stressed by something, I can't see that it's thought. I can't see that I'm creating it. I take it as coming from the outside world, which is a huge misunderstanding. I'm going to get into blame, guilt, shame, frustration, anger. When I think that's happening, I'll feel like a victim. As I start to see what's going on, suddenly that mist burns off, and now I'm clear-headed again. And this is the big thing that I'm finding with people. If you can break the spell if you can break the mist of these low moods, of essentially break the spell of the past, what you get is a fresh human being who can parent brilliantly, innately, who can, like I say, fix a lot of the problems that they've created in their lives. And you don't need to do anything. Your job is to simply point out how life works and that the spell can be broken. And, with nearly all of these families, they're completing the course and they're getting changed long term. Now, this puts us in a different position to most primary care networks, because there's a lot of great work being done with social prescription now. It really is something that the government are rolling out across the country, and there's some fantastic stuff happening. But what I love about our team and what we're up to is we are looking at changing, really dealing with the deep causes that our young people are struggling with. It's not about just doing a lot and hoping that things will work out. It's about ensuring that everybody receives the education, the support the best that we can give them, to really make sure that they're good to go for the rest of their lives, that they get a fresh start. And this is something that people generally aren't focusing on, and it's the core of what we're doing. So yeah. What else did I want to cover? So we're hoping that this will become a model for the rest of the country, and that's the whole point of this report that will be published soon. So how we'll roll that out, we're not quite sure yet. We're kind of starting to talk about that, but we're getting lots of interest from different areas, some quite considerable groups are starting to get in touch. So we're hoping that people can really start to take this on board. But it's very hard to train people in this. You need a considerable training scheme to, because Ben's so effective because he essentially comes from, he's kind of spent a lot of time in the NHS, but he's done so much stuff. He's kind of come from out of industry. And because he's so open and normal and non-judgmental, people really, really trust him. And he's not giving them an intervention. So we found this has been so useful having a link worker, because a lot of the kids are so, and a lot of the adults, they're not interested in engaging again, or they're scared of engaging in the first place. And Ben's so non-threatening that he really, he's able to, just support them very effectively and get them to engage. So just to give you a couple of stories, a couple of case studies quickly. So we've had we've had a couple of families where there has been considerable concerns over the behaviour of largely teenage boys, very concerning behaviours around suicide and self-harm and things like that. And with after delivering this information to the parents, I haven't spoken to the young people, Ben has. We saw major changes happening within 8 to 9 sessions a lot of the time, sometimes 3. I had one particular case where this girl was in A&E almost every day for months, and we saw a complete turnaround after 3 sessions, and we'd only spoken to one particular parent. That was it. And so it just goes to show the innate power within people to change things. And again, we are looking at these root causes, which are parents are too quick-minded, understandably. Families don't listen to each other anymore. There is no listening being done. And we're I was on a call with a psychiatrist who's an expert in eating disorders and self-harm, and he advises NICE. And he was an incredible guy, but he was saying, there's about 100 parents on this webinar, and they were saying, what do we do for our kids? How can we help them? And he was saying, well, look, there's a few things that come up for us all the time. Number one is listening is a lost art form. parents do not listen. There is this culture now of trying to fix, of trying to deal, of just trying to sort things out, and essentially trying to, prove yourself as well as a parent. And he was saying this is so detrimental to young people, because what it does is it robs them of their ability to reset, to discover their ability to go into these higher states of intelligence, to start to rely on that, to appreciate that it happens, to essentially just get their resilience and their contentment back. So that's a huge thing. And I'm seeing that again and again and again. As soon as a parent starts to truly see, and it has to be a heartfelt seeing, it's a deeper seeing, it's insightful. It's not just academically seeing what's going on. But when they truly see how they've been behaving and what's been missed over the years, then they start to slow down. They really connect. So, for instance, I had one young girl who was self-harming quite considerably, and I was talking about this kind of stuff with mum. Well, mum didn't know what to do, but one night she was just her daughter was on her phone. She wouldn't talk to her. The relationship had broken down quite a lot, and she kind of just sat next to her. Daughter's still on the phone. Daughter went really. She said, "What do you want to do this?" Daughter's like, "No." "Should we do that tonight?" "No." And then the dog comes in, and the daughter puts the phone down and starts playing with the dog. And then the mum just sits on the floor with her daughter. And after about 20 minutes, half an hour of playing with the dog and just chatting about things here and there, they end up doing a whole host of things that evening. And we broke the spell of what mum was trying to do, trying to fix, solve, sort, deal with. And she started to see, when she saw how she was using her thinking, and it was full of so much fear and worry, as soon as she became content with the fact that things are the way they are, there's no changing it. Her eyes cleared, her heart cleared, her head cleared, and she just used her common sense to do what she wanted to do. And she knew how to connect with her daughter, but she couldn't force it. She couldn't deal with it head on. And this is the thing for me, with resolving issues in families, you can't deal with it head on. If a family doesn't appreciate that they live in thought and that we go in different moods, and these moods are essentially our understanding, our levels of intelligence in life, while they're not playing with a full deck, it's very, very difficult in current society to have a loving, kind, easy family experience when you don't know how things really, really work. Because as a result, because we hold on to beliefs and ideas that we don't know we're holding on to. We're really judgmental. We don't realize it. We're not safe for people. And again, when I see parents innocently, their minds are full of stuff. They're not safe. And, the families are kind of like a sports team. You're going to want to play for a good captain. Now, a good captain, you need someone who is kind, who listens to you, who brings people together, gets them out of their insecure personal thinking, and you have a good time with. That will get goodwill and respect in the mix. If you don't have that, well, then you can't expect for the kids to kind of fall in line. I've found as a teacher, as more and more of this good feeling and this just natural well-being came into my life, well, then the kids did enjoy being around me. Well, then I did listen to them. Well, then I did show respect in a way that I'd never really done before, and I hadn't seen my colleagues do, quite frankly. And what I got back was huge. And we see this in families all the time. When families really see, parents are the leaders, when they really see what they've been missing, well, then they experience this contentment, the spell breaks, and now they're in a position where they can connect with their kids, understand them, really listen to them, and get a sense of how the kids see things, because everyone's their own individual culture. So we've seen that, which has been really exciting. I've had a lot of people in their 20s, early 20s, heartbroken young men, or just young women who can't make head and a tail out of life and feel like they've been depressed for ages. And again, most of these are, I mean, especially with the women, women seem to catch on much quicker than men. But 4 or 5 sessions a lot of the time, things will be great. I have one particular young woman who just, as soon as she'd been depressed for years, as soon as she saw that she was experiencing what her mind was creating, that was the reality. I mean, I didn't really think that much had gone in. I showed her a couple of videos and we talked about it. But the next time she came on a week later, she was vastly different. And what it had sparked, not only had she got a reason for why she felt depressed for so long, but she'd gone and she started looking at a whole host of different psychological, thought and spiritual thought. And what I'm doing is essentially I am fusing psychology and spirituality because it's the same thing. So that's why this work is so powerful. They're the same thing. If you are looking at a person's academic mind and you're just trying to get that right, they won't move. They'll just learn to deal with this level that they're at. And so they'll just have to get good at coping with a horrible world. But if you show people how to unlock their happiness, their essence, their spirit, it's just a very practical, normal thing, a good feeling, unlock a good feeling. You'll get them into this state where their intelligence grows and they can self-regulate and do a good job, and they lose all their hate and all the stuff they've carried for years. And so with this young girl, she looked at all of this different stuff and she saw the same threads coming through everything: Buddhism, Christianity, what Freud was looking at, and there were, and she just, she was done again after 3 or 4 sessions. She basically found the route, found the way. And so, when people find contentment, things really start to settle down and change. The issue that I'm finding that many young people suffer from is this belief that bad feeling is bad. And to me, that's kind of like saying, well, I don't want to experience rain. Rain's a natural phenomena. If you've got an issue with it, you're going to be constantly worried about it raining. You're going to be constantly upset when it does. You're going to have a really difficult life. Well, feeling sad, feeling low, anxiety, depression, worry, these are just adjectives that we place on particular types of thinking. What makes one person anxious will be different for another. So that's all these are. These are just labels to describe particular thinking. And when people start to appreciate that these are natural things that you will experience every day, it's no big deal, you can roll through them. They come in, they go. They come in, they go. But what happens is people, a lot of the time, will get an anxious experience and get scared by it. So they become fearful of anxiety. And so you're constantly feeling like you're being followed by it. As a result, you're so scared of it happening. And that in itself creates the fear. So you get locked into a spiral, a mental spiral that gets worse and worse and worse. And a lot of them are under this impression that if this keeps going, they'll experience depression, which is essentially true. But, that's going to make things 10 times worse, starting to think like that. And so, starting to kind of realign that understanding with them a lot of the time will be enough to really change things. Because again, the kids catch on very quickly to this a lot of the time. I'm finding the older people get, usually the longer it will take for people to actually start to see that they've lived according to a belief system for a long time. And there's a lot of misunderstanding in that belief system. And as we get older, a lot of the time we can carry more and more hurt. We carry more and more negative thinking. But there's nothing to do. What I'm saying to people is that you are mentally healthy, as you're not experiencing it now, but it's there. Viktor Frankl, said in Man's Search for Meaning, after 3 or 4 years in Auschwitz, that it's possible for anybody to rediscover mental health. He wrote 16 books on it. And if you've got someone who's had that level of trauma who can still experience mental health, you can't break the human spirit. And so as people start to get a sense of that, these nice feelings bubble up. And I'm always saying to people, don't believe me. You look for yourself. You mustn't believe. If you take on my ideas, you won't get any change at all. No good at all. I'm describing something that's invisible to you. Can you see it? And as they take a look week on week, they find it. And they look at resources in between that I send them. And as much as we can, me and Ben will engage parents, largely over young people, unless it's inappropriate, you know, but largely we want to work with the parents, because then we get the whole family, changing. And sometimes the young people want to be involved, and sometimes they don't. And we still got a high proportion of young people. Ben's got a very high proportion of young people. But for me, I find that we get a lot of traction if we deal with the parents. And hopefully it will you know bring it will support people in a lot of communities. But is that okay, Gordon? Is that
Thanks very much. It's a fascinating process you follow. Can you just, Ben, maybe I missed it at the beginning, who is Ben?
So Ben Nesham, he is the link worker. He's the adolescent social prescriber. So he basically will take all of the doctor's referrals and then support people in finding an intervention that's applicable for that, that's right for them.
And the method you use, is there books that we could read, or?
I can send some resources over. Well, not really. I mean, so a lot of the work that I do comes from psychologists and psychiatrists who spent time around a man called Sydney Banks. I think I sent some resources last time, but I can send some more. And so their practice totally changed when they met Sid, because he was just a welder from Glasgow. But he said to them, hang a sec, guys, your results aren't great. Well, he had a big realization in his 40s. And, he just said, you need to look at what you're doing again. And then they started up the Sydney Banks Institute in the University of East Virginia, and they trained a lot of people through that. There were various different organizations.
Okay, let's say questions. Joan.
Yeah, that was very interesting, Ben. Can you tell us some idea of other interventions that you might suggest? You said there's about 25, did you say?
I think there's about 20. So Young Minds is one that Ben will refer to a lot. Youth Connections is one. First Cafe in Stortford, they're fantastic. A lot of kids will go down to there for interventions. Obviously CAMS.
Are any of the interventions physical activities?
I think a couple are, yeah. And some of them are kind of weight focused, eating disorder focused, or self-harm focused, but we definitely need more. And especially for the adults, there's just such a need at the moment. So we do need a lot more people, a lot more interventions that doctors can actually refer to. But yeah, I mean, he seems to do well. I mean, it's incredible how quickly he gets people placed. You're looking at, it's days from actually leaving the GP surgery. A lot of the time, it's days before you're then into, someone's contacting you to start an intervention.
This seems to me to be one of the really valuable things, is because when people have a real need and someone responds, that is an enormous relief.
Yeah.
And it's empowering. Rather than being put on a waiting list, or sort of you feel that you're going to get help, that starts you off on a good path then.
Well, that's it. And we were at Christmas, we were absolutely overloaded, and we were running so much stuff for our webinar, for our waiting list. They had a weekly webinar, they were getting weekly resources sent over, and we were in contact every couple of weeks just to check things were okay. We were doing everything we could, and that's just not thought about generally. So, yeah.
But you're using a lot of varied resources that young people can respond to and are used to using anyway. So that's really widening rather than just being one-to-one, you've got these other things that you can use as well, that they can use on their own and they can work with at home and reinforce what they've got from you.
That's it. And that, you know, that really COVID helped in that, because we were forced to just rely solely on tech and make tech work. So it was a blessing in disguise, really, for us in that respect. You know?
Well done you.
Question from Anne-Louise Briggs has got a question.
Yes, I have. You mentioned CAMS, the Child, Adolescent and Mental Health Service. And I understand that during the pandemic, the waiting lists for that are absolutely enormous. People can't get CAMS appointments for months and months. So what happens with your service when people need your service? How long do they have to wait?
Well, at the moment, it's near immediate. But, you know, over Christmas, like I say, in the start of the year, it's probably a couple of weeks.
Well, that's quite quick in comparison to CAMS.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's a different thing, because a lot of the time CAMS is dealing with some very severe stuff. Yeah, and you know, they're not going to be able to process that quickly. That could take years. So the system gets bogged down because people don't leave generally.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, we are that kind of entry level anxiety largely based intervention. And we have been there to prop up people who have been struggling with some more severe stuff before they get to CAMS. We've had to do a bit of that, but yeah, you know, when you're actually on the ground with it in the conditions that we were in, we just did the best we could, but we're not really,
It's preventative work they're doing, isn't it?
you know, we're not really an intervention for anything serious, you know, in terms of serious mental health disorders. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Is CAMS a national initiative?
Yeah.
Colin, George, you need to unmute yourself, Colin. Colin, you need to unmute yourself.
Have I got there?
Yep.
Yeah. Ben, you said that you were dealing with preventative work, but the people that are being referred to you, were they referred because the doctor had made some judgment that this person actually doesn't quite see what their problem is?
Yeah.
So rather than the NHS referring someone with anxiety symptoms to cognitive behavioural therapy, is that a juxtaposition? I mean, are you complementary in a sense, or is there an overlap?
Well, you're kind of right, Colin. When I use the term prevention, I kind of mean prevention before kind of secondary services. So before they would go into, and it's to try and stop people going into CAMS. And you know, I guess when I was teaching in schools, it was prevention to try and stop mental health disorders initially. But yeah, I guess in this circumstance, it is just to try and prevent things.
You're picking up the early stages in a sense.
That's it. So yeah, sorry, I've forgotten the essence of your question.
Well, it was really to position what you're offering as prevention compared with what currently is the standard. The GP would refer someone with anxiety issues and so on, potentially to cognitive behavioural therapy as the next stage on after the medication, or for someone who didn't want to take the medication but wanted to actually deal with the issues by changing their strategies of how they deal with life, which in a sense what you're doing a stage back, as I see it. I'm trying to see it in context really of what's currently being offered and how yours is distinctly different and potentially more valuable because you're trying to crack it at an earlier stage.
Yeah, well, that's it. It definitely sits on the same level. So, you know, you're right. It would be kind of in terms of whether they come to me or they would go into CBT or some other intervention. It's that kind of initial level of low-level anxiety or, you know, beginnings of perhaps depression and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this is different to CBT because with CBT, you're learning to try and alter the way that you see life. Whereas with this, you are altering the way you see life, but you're starting to wake up a deep depth of knowledge that you never knew you had. and through that you see the world differently. It changes your mood, changes your perspectives, you know, and so you start to see your habits and how they pull you down. And as you see that,
Is there an individual case study that you could obviously anonymously take us through, rather than a family, but an individual who's been referred to you, and to give us some colour about the kinds of things they were scared about and how the process helped? Is that very difficult to do?
Well, so when you do that, the standard is that you mix them. So I mean, this blew my mind. But, so you don't, it's never actually what happened. You mix 2 or 3 case studies, and then that becomes one case study. But yeah, I've got one here, and that might actually. Yeah. So you know, in this particular one. So young, so you'd like the kind of the specific story, would you, Colin, generally in terms of
It brings
sufficient, bring it to life in a sense.
I'll do my best. Okay.
The things that person was really scared about, and how they came to realise that was actually distorting their life.
Okay. Sure thing. All right. Well, this particular case, a young male, he's about 14 years old. So at the point that we started working with him, he'd been refusing school for 18 months, and he was in a bit of a bad way. He was frequently suffering from hallucinations, and just couldn't get out of a low mood. Parents were kind of at their wits' end, didn't know what to do, and he'd been in traditional therapies for a year. So when we got to him, he was really, really struggling. Not much was changing, and so after 3 sessions, this young person started to set some goals, and we sorry, it's just trying to keep it confidential. So this young person was not really very hopeful about the situation. Family as well were not very hopeful about the situation. Again, you had huge amounts of anxiety around this ever changing. So parents didn't understand why it was happening. Were very much behind supporting their young son, but they really didn't know what to do. And there were a whole host of other economic conditions that they were struggling with as well. Financial issues they were struggling with as well. And so started work with this young person. He did the sessions with his parents, and we maybe did, what have I written here? We did the 6-week program, and actually in this case, little was changing after the 6-week program. And I suggested that, and this is quite a normal thing, is that if it's not working after 6 weeks, that perhaps it would be good if I just worked with the parents and the young person didn't join in. But in this particular case, that young person did want to join in, and they kept going. And then it was after a particular school holiday, he decided that he was kind of open to going back to school, and so they tried to get him in at the start of the year. It hadn't worked, but if you asked him and you were talking to him, he would still seem quite disengaged, like he hadn't taken a lot in. But there were cracks appearing, started to want to go back to school. And there were some issues. there were some quite specific issues with getting him into school. But what we started to see was that in lessons, he was identifying the anxiety. And before, he would just walk into certain rooms where he had particular anxieties come up for him. And this is very normal. A lot of the kids are like this. So they feel triggered. And what he started to notice was the triggers. And so, you got this slow build up, nothing's happening, but he's starting to want to go back to school. He's starting to see his triggers. Now, you would think that, if you just looked at the kid in the patient as, the young person in isolation, you would miss half the story, because running alongside that, we're starting to see massive change in parents. And it's almost always the same in couples that have been together for a long time, in that you start to see a much deeper sense of goodwill come back between them. You start to see a much deeper level of intimacy, and they start listening to each other, and they start working as a team. And usually when I ask a couple if they work as a team, they go, yeah, of course we do, always. No one ever says no. And usually it's what they mean by that is we discipline the children in the same way. But actually working as a team started to transform the family dynamic, and it made things a lot calmer at home. And he, as a result of the parents becoming more loving, more lighthearted, he was spending more time around them. And, this kid was an only child. So he didn't, he only knew gaming with his friends, or he was, sitting in his room playing on his phone. He didn't really spend a lot of time with his parents. But as his parents became essentially just safer, calmer, more relaxed, he started to have an easier experience of being at home, which meant that he was more open and more resilient to trying new things. And like I say, there were some teething issues getting him back into school. But eventually, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that, he was really starting to settle down. And he would complete a school day without texting his parents. He would complete a school day without worrying about things. And he would come home and kind of not even notice that he wasn't worrying anymore. And so parents didn't really bring that up, but they were just starting to log it. They were aware of it. And now everything's, they're fine. They're still doing fine. And, this was, we started working with them, I don't know, 7 or 8 months ago. Because I was doing quite a bit of work through the summer last year, not as an official member of the team, but they started to see change. But sorry, I should have really.
Yeah, well, thank you for trying. I mean, it's difficult. Yeah.
It's just,
but it suggests that what Joan said earlier was the very situation of being helped and people concerned about you, or a person concerned about you, and bringing the family together actually changes the whole scene.
That's it. And the parenting just went up so many notches. That was the great thing. And you can't do it any other way, in my opinion. With the best will in the world, if a parent isn't really leading the family and engaged and alive and awake and kind and lighthearted, it's just too hard. It's like, without that influence, they're the point of entry. And so that's what we try and focus on. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Sorry.
Quantum of this problem. You referred to 160 referrals in 9 months, roughly. That's 5 a week. And that's, is that just East Hertfordshire?
That's just our particular primary care network. And just young people. That's just young people and families.
It's staggering. So how many children What percentage of the adolescent population have challenges?
I go for 99, Gordon, if I was to answer honestly. I mean, I think it's the thing is with this is that the natural challenges of life, you know, we're starting to say are coming from the mind. And so starting to, I mean, I think it's nearly everybody, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody grows up being able to keep hold of this childlike essence that we experience. And the thing is that when you experience it, you know, whether you're 1 or you're 50 or you're 90, it's always the same experience when you feel yourself. Contentment never changes. It's constant. And I think when you lose touch with that, which you're going to inevitably, you know, constantly all day, I spend 99% of my day being Ed, a human being walking around the world. You know, I'm not constantly going, oh, that's my thinking, that's my thinking. I don't pick up on it. But the nice thing to know is that, you know, like when I get intense feelings now, where I used to blame people or blame myself, I might get into that for a moment, but then suddenly I start to go, hang on a sec. There's this knowing that pops up of, this is coming from somewhere else. And I think if you haven't got that, you're always going to experience problems in some form. But you know, if parents are quiet and calm and loving, and they feel alive, and they're light-hearted and jokey, you know, you'll have much less of a struggle in life because you pick it up.
Right.
Gordon, didn't want to hug it, but I'd just like to ask you, Ed, in terms of the whole issue of social prescribing, which is experimental, and I understood from your first talk that you were part of a pilot study to actually try and demonstrate not only that your approach could be part of, and therefore worth supporting, part of a social prescribing possible referral in the portfolio of possible referrals. But how is the whole study of social prescribing going? And do you think it is going to be something that will be embedded in the whole NHS framework?
Yeah. I was on a webinar with a whole load of NHS leaders the other day. There were hundreds of people on it, and yeah, that's definitely the way it seems to be going. The government is definitely trying to harness the power of the community-based intervention. You know, and from their point of view, you know, I would think it's probably cheaper, and you know, it is actually, community interventions are a huge part of the NHS. You don't realise it, but they really are a cornerstone of it. So yeah,
but they haven't been seen as such, and therefore haven't been supported as such. So there's no NHS funding flowing to those social prescribing agencies potentially, or potentially social prescribing agencies.
No, absolutely, and really, you're going to see the success of local interventions. I would say, I mean, I was talking to our clinical director this morning, and I said, what I so love about what we're doing is that everything is GP focused and overseen by GPs. I mean, the thing is, our service is very safe. I have to do supervision. Everybody does supervision with, you know, a local psychiatrist. And we are constantly in meetings together talking about different patients and what needs to be done to support them effectively, utilizing things, you know, our knowledge base. And so that safety element we've really focused on, and our protocols we've had to develop, and they're very good. You know, we've taken a lot of time over that stuff. So there's a huge amount in actually setting this service up, which people I think are quite stunned at when they come to actually have proper conversations with us.
It's going to become a reality.
Yeah, it's been rolled out widely across the country now. We're just right at the front, at the forefront of it all, really. So yeah.
You're getting a positive response on an enormous percentage. Did you say 98% respond positively to the intervention?
92%. We've got a 92% retention rate. Yeah.
You talk about retention. What's that? What does that mean?
Well, sorry, I mean people that complete the program, Gordon. That's one-to-one, I would say. I don't think I worked it out for the other. So that's just on the one-to-one scheme.
But that's when you say complete the program, complete it successfully.
Yeah, so they do the whole 6 sessions. And quite frankly, if they go past 2, like, we see positive change. I can't think of anyone who dropped out after that we didn't see any positive change in.
It's fabulous. Dottie, you need to unmute yourself. You're still.
Yeah, am I unmuted? Yeah, I'm unmuted. Hi, Ed. That's been fascinating talk. Thank you. I just wondered, is anybody looking at prevention before you get to the state where these adolescents and these younger people have to go and seek help, or the parents seek help for them? And if they are, what I often feel is that unlike my childhood and most of our childhoods, there are so many influences out there today, so-called reality TV, whereas we're fed these images of how we have to look, how we have to behave, what we have to achieve, what we have to have. So I always feel that it's the chicken and the egg, or it's the cart and the horse, isn't it? Is anyone looking at the prevention side of what leads them into becoming dependent on people like yourself?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of work being done there. Actually, I had some time with one of the MPs that was leading that a few years ago. I mean, in terms the way mental wellbeing in schools started off, I was teaching in schools, and just to do that. And so there's lots of people doing it. In terms of how effective it is, I haven't seen a lot of stuff that was hugely effective. And I think in a lot of cases, actually, the vast majority of what I did wasn't effective. And it was interesting to see that. So, we took a group of 15 students, the 5 most challenging in the school, and then 10 high achieving but highly anxious kids. And we taught them this for a year, and we saw massive change. But they turned up every week for an hour at lunchtime. And we a couple of years ago, we took 15 super challenging students, and we taught it to them again 1 hour a week, and we got up to Christmas, and we started to see change from September. But if I go and do an assembly, or if I make materials for people, I see generally very little change, has very little impact.
It doesn't.
But there's lots of groups doing it.
I just think that, speaking personally, I never watch these cookery bake-offs or sewing things on the TV, because I can't sew. I think I can cook, but not to the standard of these people. So I think, well, why let them influence me when it might just cause discontent in my life? And I just wondered if that is what's happening with these people, children, particularly the younger adolescents, who perceive this image of how life should be, and when they're not achieving that, then obviously it leads to unhappiness, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, absolutely, that's completely what's going on. But the big problem with the government, when the reason that I was up there was because I was saying that you tackling social media won't solve this. It's like trying to tackle gun crime. Taking away guns to try and stop gun crime. Of course, common sense is we don't want a load of guns in society. So that would help. But if you think guns are the problem, you can take guns out, but it will be replaced by knives. And we're seeing that, locally. The amount of knives that are being carried by young people in Stortford is disgusting at the minute, because they feel so fearful. And I've seen people with who have been in prison and they've been in, they've had a very tough time transform when they start to see this. And, at some point I need to, they run this program in 2 prisons in Nottingham, and you listen to those prisoners speak. It's incredible the impact that it's had on them, and how that ripples out through the penal system is great. They're really doing a lot of great work. But, I would say always, you don't want to concentrate on the physical. Physical stuff is always due to a psychological issue, and to get people to make sure that social media is used responsibly, like you say, right? You've got to change the way people are thinking. If they're looking at that and going, God, I should be like that. That's the standard that I should hold myself to. You know, that's the issue you've got. And don't worry about the standard. It's the thoughts you're creating and you don't know you're doing. It's going to cause you a lot of problems. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions? No, well, oh, Mary, have you got a question? You're muted. I've been trying to mute you all my life.
Yeah. Did Mary go?
Yeah,
Still
she's got a
muted.
question. She's trying to unmute.
You're still muted.
I've got a query or a slightly different tack.
Oh, Mary's on now.
Mary, okay.
Oh, right. Well, I'll ask my question.
Or is it,
Noel's asking a question first.
All right.
I've been doing a fair amount of work on dual diagnosis protocol in for the Hertfordshire Mental Health Trust, and something called, we're just finalising it today, and someone introduced something called the Hertfordshire Improving Access to Psychological Therapies Service. Have you come across them, and what do you have?
No, sorry, no, I don't know them at all.
IOPT, yeah. I haven't come across, but they do. I was just wondering if you might investigate that and see whether I got some sort of rather bad reports on it at the forum I was in this morning, saying what they promise isn't really what they deliver. But I wasn't quite sure whether that was reliable. But I'd be interested to know if when you've got time, you could sort of just try and follow that up. I'm sure there's a website for IAPT.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you could if you could just send me the details, definitely I could look into it. It's no problem at all.
Yes, well, I've got your email. If I get, Gordon gives me your email address.
If you send your question to Sally, Sally will transfer it across to Ed, your question.
Okay, right, yeah, right.
Right, Mary, where are you?
Yep, fair enough, right, yeah.
You're muted again, Mary. You're muted.
No, I'm okay now. I don't know how long, you've not been doing this very long with these particular young people, but are you going to maybe go back and check on how they're doing in 3 years' time? Or are you going to do a future study to see what has happened to these kids?
Well, I think, to be honest, Mary, we'd probably do it if we were after the data, we would probably do it. But I think that would probably be the only reason. It would be interesting, but I think day to day, just, you know, in reality, we just kind of, once they're discharged, and that's
really, you know, is there not any that you would really think, gosh, I wonder how they're going to get on in 3 years' time, 4 years' time?
Well, yeah, I'm always interested, but you know, kind of on a confidential level and things, we kind of, once they're discharged, they're out of our service, and yeah, you know, it's kind of, yeah, I think the only reason that they would be happy for us to be doing that would be really if we needed the data and we were putting together a report.
Right, and you've never had the same children or young adults coming back?
No, we've had a couple come back. You know, whenever we discharge, we do actively say to them, we have a whole load of links and we say, please get in touch if you are struggling again. Because, you know, what I find is that a couple of booster sessions is enough to get them back on and they're good to go again.
So
you know,
some come back.
Yeah. And I would say I want people coming back for years. You know, keep coming back. That's the whole point of it. It's a revolving door, you know. But we leave the ball in their court because otherwise we'd just be swamped.
Right. So you may have somebody coming back in 3 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I am here just for a checkup.
If
Yeah.
if they're being referred by their GP, the GP may have some clue as to whether they're still actually coming along with the same kinds of anxieties.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, no, completely. And you know, we do allow them to come straight through. So if they've been with the GP and they've been referred to us, a lot of the time they will go straight back to Ben to get booster sessions. So they don't have, you know, they could come back to me, but largely
they bypass the GP.
Yeah, they can bypass it because we want to save GP time as much as possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
James, you're muted as well. James, we can't hear you. That's it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, James.
Yes, referral by GP is mentioned. I don't think, I know far better is referral by the teacher at the school who finds that the youngster is this way and that a bit. And you've mentioned something before. My grandmother, when I was a very little child, taught me that prevention is better than cure. So if the teacher refers it, that's when the child appears to be beginning to have some problems, and there are all sorts of different problems, then that's you or people like you with your knowledge and expertise can get the youngster on track before he gets off track too much. And I strongly believe in that. My grandmother had a lot of good advice to me, like look before you leap, for instance. Or if you're going somewhere, look where you're going and look where you put your feet. I mean, and those, we don't hear that sort of thing nowadays. We see this rubbish on television about psychology and, I mean, did you mention Freud? Sigmund Freud?
But yeah. But
he's a good boy, Sigmund. Yeah. He used to live in Prague, didn't he? In the Czech Republic, in Prague.
Yeah, I think so. I'm no Freud expert.
Can I just thank you so much? You must have incredible patience and a skill. And you're obviously you're non-judgmental when you meet up with these people.
Try to be,
which is a tremendous strength. And you're doing a wonderful job. And thank you very much. And thanks for a very interesting talk.
No problem.
Our next talk is on the 27th of July, which is going to be live from an aquarium in Macduff, in the northeast of Scotland. Claire Matthews is the manager there, and she's going to be talking about sea life in the Murray Firth. So it should be a fascinating talk, I'm quite sure. And so I thank you all for joining, and can invite you all to lift your glasses and toast Rotary and the Queen. Rotary and the Queen.
The Queen and Rotary.
So see you next time. Thanks very much.
Thank you.